choose to love with freedom to fly. From my heart, where the light keeps shining, and I choose to feel the whole world crying for the strength that we can rise above. I choose love.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, viewers. Welcome. I'm Andreas Julich with Grace Healing, and I have with me Larry Reynolds.
Hello, I'm Larry Reynolds, yes.
Hey, good to see you again, Larry.
Yes, it's good to see you, Andreas.
We continue our conversation in the series of the 10 great words.
Yes.
And I want to just point out right at the beginning that we have some links for you that you can actually go and see the resources that we talk about. The first one is from the book Covenant in Love. You can go to gracehealing.org/book, where you can actually download the book and read about what we're talking about. And you can make a gift contribution there if you want to, or it's there for you for your free resource. Also, if you go to gracehealing.video, you have all the videos that we have recorded over the last 4-5 years, some 160 videos, where you can research what we are doing here at Grace Healing. So welcome, everyone. I'd like to do first a quick recap on what we did so far, exploring the 10 great words. We started 2 weeks ago with looking, basically what we're doing is we're looking at the 10 commandments, and we're trying to reframe them so that we can get the true meaning of those commandments. So 2 weeks ago, we started with thou shalt not kill. And we discovered that we can do nothing to end or diminish life. Last week, we talked about you shall not commit adultery. And we learned that we will not adulter or diminish the purity of love in any form of life. So if we translate that, in my mind, to the daily life, killing means like cutting off or ending any relationship, for example, that we have. And adultering means abusing or dishonoring a relationship that we may have. So that's a recap. Larry, how was that recap? Is there anything else you want to add to that before we move into today's topic?
Just that, like when you're saying the definition of whether it's to kill, end, sever, or divide, the importance of understanding that to kill something is far more than just the measure of the physical act of murder. Yes, that's covered under the words that you will find that you can do nothing to harm or diminish the life in the manner in which I have formed it to be. But it's also important to understand that words can kill. They can tear people down. They can diminish people before the presence of God. They can make them look to be less than they are. And we have opportunity to choose that path that is not diminishing people, defining them in a lesser form than God sees them. And even if a person is presenting to them, or to us, themselves in a sense of brokenness, we can look through that and find the presence of God and pray change for them as well. And as you mentioned, like the importance of understanding that we're here to reframe the 10 Commandments. It is clearly how to reach to what God would give us as a benevolent teacher, as a benevolent guide, to move us into deeper awareness of how to function in the living attributes of God in everything that we do. And you've described, like at first, relationship between others, relationship through dissolution and adultery or whatever, how we tear it down. Now, today, we step into the relationship between us and God. So.
Yes, that's exact. That's great. Thank you for the clarification, Larry. My dogs are contributing to the conversation. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can't control them. But today we would like to move into a topic to build on what we have done before. And I want to share the screen real quick and make this an illustration. And I let this sink in just for one moment.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever seen that before, Larry.
Yes, I have. That's awesome.
So to me, this really means that us humans, we are conditioned by our environment, right? What we see, what we have in front of us. And in practical terms, it means politics, religion, the media, the medical system is conditioning us. What we see, hear, touch, taste, smell is what we think is our reality, right? And we look for anchors. And, you know, Larry, you and I, we have talked over the weekend offline about this, that humans are looking for an anchor, something to hold on to, you know, to feel safe, to have a safe haven, or to feel safe basically in life. But we make up our own image for ourselves and how things should be, and, you know, our core beliefs and what's comfortable is really sticking with our own personal story and our personal perspective. So like with this elephant here, you know, the closer you are and what you're looking at, you may see different things. So Larry, are we as human beings making things up? You know, do we live in an illusion? Because everybody may see something different. And how can we break away from it?
Well, I think it's important to remember that each of us was once connected into the fullness of that which is God. We were known as perfect before God. We were spiritual in nature before we entered the walk of humanity. And in that time, we did not have these veils or these limited perceptions that we now see, like within your elephant diagram. You know, somebody's trying to define the elephant. One's calling it a wall, one's calling it a rope, one's calling it a tree. And each person from within their humanness, their human veil, is looking at something from a certain perspective. So like when you're naming the importance of being anchored in, or people searching for an anchor, from my perspective, some people need the anchor. They need to be anchored and protected in the harbor, while others need to not anchor in. They need to be able to move about and function within their calling. Because as we were dwelling within the presence of God, we had absolute clarity of everything that we were going to enter into within our human walk. As we entered into our human walk, we entered the veil of humanity and shed our direct connection unto God, in order that we would serve and bring restoration to the spiritual realm. So what's happened is God has provided us anchors to help us move to different senses of awareness, and to help free us from knowledge that we think we've gained on the earth, that have actually become that limited view, what we call the elephant a wall, or we call the elephant a rope. And in my humbled opinion, what I saw within the 10 great words was the importance of recognizing that God is far bigger and far more vast in expression than what mankind tends to describe God as in words. And there are no words that can describe the limitless nature of our God, but we have small segments, small pointers that we can point at attributes or aspects of our living God. And so now, if we can step back from our human veil, meaning surrender into that which is the perfection of God, we would be able to see with a new sight the whole elephant. We would be able to look upon the image of the whole thing and see all these people naming different things, and also not embrace any judgment for the person that calls it a rope, a person that calls it a wall, a person that calls it a tree, or whatever they happen to be calling it. We can witness without judgment, seeing that which they're witnessing. And we can observe it and say, okay, we pray that they would be freed into a higher understanding to get the whole vision of this glorious animal and not be limited to one aspect of it. So
that's really interesting. You know, I'm thinking of something I read somewhere about the art of archery. You know, when you shoot at a target,
yes,
like doing archery,
yep.
They say if you focus on a small target, the error of missing it is smaller than when you focus on a larger target. You know, I'm just thinking of that, just came to my mind, So you're talking about the bigger picture, God's picture, God's
Yes.
creation being large. I think for human beings, it is more, it's really an issue because we like to be laser focused and we have more success looking at small targets, right? So
Yep.
how do we deal with that?
Well, in my understanding, it's coming back to even the expression of the 10 great words. I didn't write these. I sat down and honestly argued with God about whether I was even going to share them with people or not. And they just poured through me in the course of a 7-day period while the book, A Covenant of Love, was being formed. So 217 some odd pages came out in a 7-day period, just typing, going through and looking at it. It is about surrendering oneself in absolute trust that God is. And what I've witnessed is many people don't even want to believe in the fact that there's a God. They don't even want to believe in the fact that there is something more grand than themselves, because then they'd have to accept the fact that somehow their God knew they were going to walk this ground and let them. And they're ticked off, they're angry, they're mad. They're upset the fact that they lost somebody in their lives, or they did this, or they went through this, or they lost their job, and they're really ticked off at God. Again, if a person would honestly surrender definition of self and seek to know God, they would remember, wait, I knew this. Before I came here, I came into the midst of humanity to bring healing and restoration to the spiritual realm that's beyond the sight of human understanding. And every single thing that I encounter that does not reflect the nature of God's love, the nature of God's holy attributes, the actual expression of what God would be in totality as benevolent, loving, pure, perfect, embracing, joy-filled, all things that don't align with those things, we would have clear understanding, clear perspective from a divine oversight to know, oh, I'm not functioning in love right now. I'm not moving in truth right now. I feel myself waning towards deception. I'm not functioning with integrity. And we would begin to be able to see from that divine perspective, coming into a clear understanding of how we're moving. Once we're purified in that awareness and we become divine in our attributes, then we can center in upon the target. Because we will witness the target as divinity has formed it, not how we would change it to be a wall, a rope, or a tree. We would actually witness the beauty of the whole expression. Even if it is a small target, we would be refined in our ability to look upon it as God views it, not how we might have viewed it through anger, deception, manipulation, or denial.
That's really fascinating. That actually is a good segue into one of the great words that we're going to talk about today, because it's really dealing with, like you mentioned, seeing the greater picture, or, you mentioned something about, I think what I get the sense out of it is that God may be judging us, and the word will say that. I'm going to share the screen and then we'll see what I mean. I have a hard time expressing it.
Okay.
Here we go. Let me just see. There we go. Here it is. Okay. So, oops. There we go. Word number 2. And what I want to do is let me read the commandment as it is written. And then we can go from there, okay? Because there are some key elements in there that I have questions about. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord, your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. I have a really hard time with this text. Can you work with it, Larry?
Well, in my heart, like what we were just talking about, if you could leave that right there like that, the reality is the way that the authors, well, not even the authors, these weren't the authors. This is an altered form of the original scripture of the 10 great words. And what it is doing is it is bringing forth, and I know this is going to really tick off a lot of people, this is bringing forth spiritual influence to describe the nature of how God wishes us to function. Because they are defining God as a jealous God, which God is not. There isn't any jealousy within our God. God is perfect, pure, loving, benevolent, omnipresent, omnipotent. Why would a God form spiritual jealousy when all things that exist are of God? God need not possess things. God need not own things, for everything is of God. So to me, I was really having a challenge with that. Even in my youth, when I was growing up, I was like, God is not jealous and God does not punish, because I felt a living God that was within me, a living God that was formed of pure love, a loving God that took us gently into his embrace and allowed for clear understanding to be present for us, not forcing us into understanding. It wasn't about beating us into an awareness. It wasn't about punishing us. What has happened here is they've taken the measure of how generations have repeated certain suffering, and they're looking at it going, geez, this is the 4th generation that we've seen the same type of suffering within this family. God must be punishing us. I totally disagree.
And a lot of people say that too in daily conversations.
Exactly.
Oh, God will punish me. God will punish you. Right?
Exactly. What it is the blindness within the human veil to think that because I have not searched the spiritual understanding of what is unfolding within my life, I continue to say the same spiritual things over and over again. And since I don't want to take accountability for the fact that I've been given the power to look at these things, I've been given God's holy name, so that as I, Yahweh Elohim, that is my name. I am that I am. Call upon my name anytime you're in need of distress. So we've been given the power to call upon God's name. And if we did that, we would gain that divine perspective and realize that, oh my God, now I know why this, for the 4th generation deep, my great-great-great-great-grandson is still manifesting the alcoholism, the anger, the resolve, sorting around alcoholism that is through addiction, that is born of the kidney and the liver manifesting anger throughout my family, the anger I knew within myself, generations that followed. And we would start to see what the spiritual root is, not how God is punishing people. We would see what is going on in the spiritual nature, and we have opportunity to release the demonic influence over the corporate entity of the family, which is the spirit of high anger, that we are holding anger for something that was done to us 4 generations ago that even the child doesn't even know existed, but still functions with a level of anger, even in his youth. And these people look at, how can a little child like that become so violently angered in a situation? How can the angered child rise to such an intensity? Because they're seeing something that this is not my child. Why is this anger rising? Because people immediately want to blame, oh, God's punishing me. Instead of looking deeper to realize, like it says in the 10 great words, you will find that you cannot surrender to or worship anything that is not of my love. As you see things revealed that are less than that which I have formed, you will know it revealed as something lost to its original design. So if you're seeing anger or constant levels of deception rolling on in the family, or spiritual servitude, indentured servitude showing up within families, people ending up in a, even spiritual prostitution, where women were utilized as prostitutes generations before, as they were harmed and imprisoned into a lifestyle by men that actually pulled them in as prostitutes. Yet from generations to follow, women didn't understand, why am I subjected to the men that I choose in my life, and I'm governed by them, and they own me and possess me and control me, yet they don't understand that they're functioning under the spirit of prostitution. So again, this is not about God punishing. God has made known the nature of his being: pure, perfect, loving, benevolent, wisdom-filled, clarity, order, and all these things. If we see something that is not in alignment with those nature, we know that they have been revealed as lost to their original design.
So maybe the commandments as it is written, in the Bible, means not so much God is punishing, but we're punishing ourselves by
Yes, we're
not
punishing ourselves.
seeking,
Yes, we're
God.
punishing ourselves by not seeking through the veil of humanity directly back unto God's presence, shedding the veil of humanity and trusting in God and measuring the holy attributes of God in the situation we see witnessed before us. And that is the biggest challenge. People have a tendency to believe what they witness with their eyes.
Yeah, like the elephant.
Exactly. Instead of looking at it and going, I know my brother is angry with me. But if I look through that, I see that the anger is born from within him. It is governing the nature of his actions. It is actually coming out of spiritual fear. What is he fearful of? God, I seek you. Stop seeking the spiritual ground of why your brother's angry at you. Search the presence of God and surrender to be the presence of God, and you will see the anger just leave your brother. You will see him transformed, transmuted in such a way that he will actually stall and realize he's reacting in an angry way. And then in that moment, healing has opportunity to enter in because you're holding no ties over him for being angry. You've released him of the spirit of anger, and now you're witnessing the situation, desiring to see God's presence manifest. So anything that rises that is not as of its original design, which is pure, blessed, holy, sanctified, and revealing God's glory, you now know, okay, this is not God. God is not a jealous God. I release any form of jealousy, and I embrace the holy recognition that all things are connected unto the one source that is our God and Creator. There is no jealousy within God.
So it is about, in any situation that we encounter that may be controversial, that may be a conflict, that we look at the opportunity to seek God within that situation and being able to release the spiritual influences that may be governing that situation.
Yes, and that we mentioned this last week and also the week before, but I think it's important for people to understand. Yeshua stated in words specifically, every single thing you see of corruption that manifests upon this earth begins first in the spiritual realm, the order of principalities. He named that all manner of corruption is first spiritual in nature, and that's a small s spiritual. Spirit, being capital S, God, is pure, perfect, and above all of that. Pure and perfect in all things already seen in their completed and original design as blessed, holy, restored, ordered, clarified, purified, sanctified, and revealing glory. Something in the manner of a spiritual, small s, spiritual nature emerging from the order of principalities will always reveal itself as something that is not a divine attribute. So if a person says, I'm so confused, Yeshua said that we must release all things of a spirit nature and a demonic nature. And if we do so, we must welcome the presence of God within that place, or many of like kind will return. So if we release the spirit of confusion from our situation, our conversation, or the group setting that we're in, we're seeing people are getting confused or befuddled and all tripped up in their words. If we release the spirit of confusion or the demonic form of confusion or discontent, then we would embrace God's holy clarity within its place. We return to the holy nature of the original design, which was clarity, order, and divine grace. And we would see the spirit, separate entity, born of the order of principalities, named by humanity as confusion, transformed into newness of life, and it would recognize itself as once again defined, pure, and perfect in its original design before God.
We always say God is really, it's all about simplicity, right? But as I'm listening to you, these are deep, elaborations about what we could do or should do, but it is simple. But I think our minds, human minds, are always trying to analyze it. How do I go about it? What should I do? But really, I come to the conclusion, for me, it is more going within, seeking the quietness and the silence so that I can receive God, and then things will be revealed.
Yes.
You know, so I think that's the problem. When we have this big elephant in front of us, we have a choice, you know, to look just at the tail or at the, you know, the ears and make our conclusions, or we have a choice to step back and look at the bigger picture. And
well, remember that what I'm sharing in this process here, and I mean, I like what you just described, is the manner in which it's received in you and how you apply it. In my calling, I am led by God in a way that as I see these spiritual things, I am called specifically to return them unto God. There are other humans that in their calling, they won't. I mean, they'll continue to walk around spiritual anger. They'll yell and scream at people, or they'll be, oh, I'm so confused. And they'll be confused and befuddled most of their lives, because their calling is to function in that spiritual ground so that God attains them from the order of principalities, returning unto humanity and returning into God's embrace. So my calling in some way has been to witness these things and relinquish these things. And if a person wishes to choose that same path, it is available to every person to say, am I reflecting attributes of God right now? No, I'm reflecting a nature that is not godly. How does it define itself? And they have the right to choose to relinquish that instead of act through it. So like when you say keeping it simple, it is that simple. In this whole process, it's as simple as, am I walking as God's presence in the attributes of God, or am I choosing something of a lesser form? If I'm choosing something of a lesser form, I have to decide, do I wish to be more God-centered or more spiritually centered, small s? And once you do, Yeshua gave you the power to make your decision of either giving your power over to the spirit of confusion or relinquishing the spirit of confusion into God's embracing place and embracing holy clarity. You can either give freedom to the spiritual influences, or you can embrace them and live and dwell in them.
If you were asked to create a simple checklist for the common people out there to follow these instructions you just said, like a 3-point checklist, how to implement that simplicity and that seeking of God, what would that checklist entail?
First, seek the presence of God. Breathe deep. Abwum. As you do, recognize whatever it is that is not of a divine nature, then relinquish it unto God and embrace God within its place. It's that simple. And release that attribute and embrace the holy attribute that is its opposite within you. And then there's 3 simple things after that. The 3 types of prayer. There's going to be a simple release through just dismissal. I feel a sense of going to anger, but I'm not going there. So it's a temptation of spiritual anger. And you chose not to embrace it. You dismissed it in the unceasing prayer, the unceasing awareness of God's presence. No, I choose not to embrace anger. I relinquish anger. And I embrace God's holy fortitude, patience, clarity, and understanding. And there's a second prayer. Well, that didn't work. I really feel like I'm getting more and more angry. So then we shift out of the unceasing awareness of God's presence. We enter into a fervent state of prayer. We meditate upon God's presence and we relinquish, we make a specific focused intention of relinquishing spiritual anger from within ourselves. And then we again choose by God's grace to embrace forbearance, clarity, patience, and understanding. Once we've done that, we find that we're clear, we're released, we're moving forward. We're still not able to get rid of it. So number 1 was the dismissal. It happened, it's done. Other times it doesn't. We got to go to the fervent prayer. Second one, works, great, fantastic. Sometimes it doesn't. So now we're dealing with the demonic. Spiritual entity of multiple forms, anger. So we get together with somebody we know, love, and trust in the fullness of agreement, We pray together with them. The third one is joining with another to release the demonic form of anger from our interaction. I'm at work, I'm dealing with a corporate entity, so I'm dealing with the spirit of anger, utilizing the spirit of anger as a tool, and I realize I should not be doing this. I join with a friend in fullness of agreement before the love of God's presence and relinquish that anger from the whole body of the corporate entity, whether it be a corporate marriage, a corporate company, a corporate fraternity organization, whatever it happens to be. We release that spirit of anger and we embrace God's, again, patience, forbearance, clarity, and wisdom. It is a simple spiritual process, 3, 3, and 3. Touch presence of God, release it, and move forward with God's presence within.
3, 3, and 3. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Larry. I think with that, that's a perfect ending of our conversation today.
Awesome. Yes.
It was awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you next week.
And please check in to the website, as Andreas mentioned, at gracehealing.org. Tap the resources that are available for you, and feel free to reach out on our Wednesday night calls for our meditation. Send Andreas the questions you may have, and we can deal with them specifically at that time if you would like to. So be blessed. Have an amazing week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.